Fong. All right, well, I think we can go ahead and get started. I see a couple of people have joined. I think more people will be trickling in soon. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so welcome everyone and thanks for joining us today. My name is Cindy Olivares. I'm with GHAI's Road Safety Program. And so today we're continuing our communications training webinar series. So back in July, we held our first training and talked more about rapid response communications. And we received some positive feedback from that webinar. And we also heard that you were interested, or that partners were interested, on what we'll focus on today, which is designing targeted communications campaigns to engage youth, the motorcycle community, and of course, we always want to engage policymakers in our road safety advocacy work. Slide 2, please. Okay, so here's a quick preview of what we'll be reviewing today for the next hour and 15 minutes. Our discussion is going to center on targeted communications tactics. So that's going to include how do we gain insight for our audience? And then how do we develop messages that resonate or that can engage these audiences? And then also very important to select the most appropriate communications channels, everything from social media to traditional TV or radio. We'll also talk a little bit more about the power of storytelling, and then also what to think about when considering any partnerships or involving influencers in your campaigns. And so that's going to be the first part of our webinar. The second part of our webinar is going to focus on case studies. And we always hear from partners that that's the favorite part because you'll get to hear real life examples of some of this advocacy work going on. So you'll hear directly from our partners today in Ecuador, in Uganda, and Ukraine. And so each of them is going to share tactics and strategies that work best for them when engaging decision makers, youth, and the motorcycle community. Next slide, please. Okay, and so for our presenters today, we have Asim Khan. Asim is Associate Director of Communications with GHAI's Road Safety Program. We also have Petro Korol joining us from Ukraine. He's a GHAI Country Coordinator in Ukraine. And joining us from Uganda, we have Irene Namuyiga. Irene is a manager of Safeway Right Way. And then from Ecuador, we have a team joining us. We have Paula Carvajal. She's founder of Movidana, also previously Minister of Transport. We also have Michelle Gaibor. She's a regional lead for the organization Youth for Road Safety. And also Pamela Naranjo is with Movidana. So they will let us know a little bit more about what the youth campaigns are and what they're looking like in Ecuador. Next slide, please. All right, so we'll get started with targeted communications. Just a quick definition and overview. So in advocacy, we know that how we communicate can be just as important as what we communicate. So targeted communications means designing and delivering messages that are tailored to a specific audience's policy priorities, their motivations, and information channels, or the type of media that they consume. So it's not just about broadcasting a one-size-fits-all message. The goal is really to make the communication strategic, to make it relevant, actionable, and timely so that it can really drive the policy change or advance those policies that we're advocating for. And a few reasons on why it is key to advocacy is, well, because they yield higher engagement. So when you target your communications, the messages reflect the audience's language, their values, and their experiences, and they're more likely to respond, listen, and act. So it lets us know that it's also more effective at influencing behavior and policy. So policymakers and the public, they're moved by the messages that connect to their own priorities or beliefs. So for example, using economic cost savings messages around road safety with policymakers might be successful, or perhaps using the community's well-being messages that resonate there. Another example could be using messages about ensuring that their families are cared for with motorcycle riders in regard to using certified helmets. Targeted communications can also ensure that the limited resources you have as an organization are used efficiently. So instead of promoting a variety of broad messaging, targeted communications should be focused where they will have the biggest impact. And then we also know that it can build stronger emotional and rational connections. So you can combine data with relatable stories or storytelling to make that advocacy more persuasive and more memorable. And then finally, it can also help overcome any barriers or resistance that your audience may have. And understanding those motivations can let us anticipate concerns and then tailor the messages to address them quickly. So ultimately, targeted communications is about meeting people where they are in their language, through the trusted channels or media that they use, and about issues that they really care about most. And when we do that well, advocacy stops just being about the general awareness building, and it becomes more of a catalyst for change. It becomes more actionable, and that's what we're looking for in our advocacy, right? Next slide, please. So the advocacy campaign phases. Here on this chart, you'll see advocacy campaigns typically move on a scale from 1 to 10 throughout the life cycle. From raising awareness all the way on the left-hand side, you see the number 1, to advocating for immediate policy change or action, which is all the way on the right side. So as an example, you see the message on the left side. It's very broad. So it would be used more so to build awareness or general awareness about an issue. So in this example, it reads, wearing the right helmet properly can save your life. So again, that's a very general message. There isn't necessarily an action paired with that and not a lot of detail. But then as your communications campaigns get more mature, on the right side, you'll see the message example. It's more specific. So here it says, pass regulation X now to ensure stronger helmet standards for all. So there we see a more targeted message. It's got more of an actionable approach. And then what we see here is that in the early phases of your campaign, it's okay to have general communications. I think that that's pretty normal, but that as your campaign matures and you start gaining more and more support, it will need to be more specific or tailored to your audience so that they can take an action. And then on the bottom here, we see a general communications approach versus a targeted communications. And it's the things we talked about, right? General is more broad. It's more of a one-size-fits-all approach, usually used for awareness building campaigns. And then on the right-hand side, we know that the targeted communications is tailored to your audience because you will have done some research on your audience via focus groups, surveys, and more. It's insight driven, and then also very important, it's very much action oriented. It's encouraging your supporters to take an action to do something specific. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So identifying and understanding priority audiences. So in order to develop campaigns that are targeted, it's essential to understand who we're trying to reach and influence. So effective advocacy doesn't always start with what we want to say. It can start with what the priority audience needs to hear and how they're most likely to receive it. So how do we do that? There's a number of ways to do that. One can be using data to understand and influence the right audiences. So you can use crash statistics, you can use surveys. Some groups have used focus groups to identify who are the most affected or who can be most influential for their campaigns. And this data is really important because it helps us move beyond any assumptions, and it reveals patterns in behaviors, in attitudes, and risk perception. So if you have that data handy, use it because it will make your campaigns definitely much more impactful. And then also thinking about mapping motivations and barriers. So some things to ask when thinking about your audience is, what do they care about most? So for instance, and the team from Ecuador is going to give us more insight on this, could be youth might care more about freedom or identity, while policymakers may care more about economic progress or public health outcomes. And then you can consider, okay, so what's stopping them from acting or supporting our mission, our cause? Some barriers could be anything from cost to access, peer pressure, or lack of enforcement. And understanding both the motivations and the barriers can let us tailor the message that connects emotionally and practically as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you see a big chart. This is just an example of an audience insight framework. So this is what it might look like once you do more research on your audience and you're collecting information. Here on the right-hand side, you'll see that on the left, here are some questions that you might want to ask yourself as you're thinking about crafting messages, as you're thinking about perhaps doing any paid or earned media. So here are the questions, right? And this is just an example of addressing the motorcycle community. So we want to know who they are, right? What are their demographics, their roles, the influence, but also important to know, and you'll see question 2 is, what do they believe? What are their values? What are their perceptions? Are there any misconceptions that they might have that your campaigns or your messaging can address? We also talked about knowing what motivates them, right? What drives them to act or what drives them to resist any change? And an important one is question 5 there is, where do they get their information? So there are a variety of communications channels. It could be social media, it could be television, radio. Some people consume both traditional and digital media. Some groups only consume one or the other. So the point of this chart is really when we answer these questions, we can design messages that are not only informing people, but are also inspiring that action. And really the takeaway is that that understanding the audience is the foundation of a good advocacy campaign. So the better we know them, their needs, their motivations, and trusted sources, the more our communication will resonate and inspire them to act. Next slide, please. So for message development, as I talked about, so the idea is that all of this audience insight that you collect, you can develop a framework similar to the one we showed you, or you can personalize it, customize it for your campaign. It will eventually help you in crafting the messages that inspire action. Think about matching your messages to your audience's values and their motivations that we reviewed in that framework. And then finally, it's important to think about the importance of balancing both emotional appeals and rational appeals in your campaigns. So we talked a little bit about pairing data of crash statistics into your messages, but it's also important to include the emotional elements such as stories and testimonies from survivors, any visuals, videos, or graphics that can really complement your campaign and make it that much more impactful. And now with that, I will hand it over to Asim, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about the variety of communications platforms that exist and then also a little bit more about the power of storytelling to engage audiences in our communications campaigns.
Thank you, Cindy. So as you can see here, we have a list of communications channels. This is a very generic list. In my experience, there are also other ways, other channels in countries that are more specific to like regions and whatnot. But, one thing we like to tell people we work with is, what works in your country? Some countries, like Cindy said, is digital, Facebook, WhatsApp, um, any other social media platform. There are some places where local media is still important, newspapers, radio stations. We have seen success with newsletters. And then I also would like to point out websites. I think having your own place, your own owned media, as we like to call it, is an important place. And it also is a place like if you want to start developing and looking at analytics, your website is the best place to get that information from because you'll have access to more of it than you would at, say, a social media analytics or even a newsletter. So one thing, we're trying to impress on people is how to use specific channels to engage audiences, and then also what kind of communications products or, activities work well. So here we have youth listed as the first one. And some of the preferred channels are, as you can see, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, pure lead campaigns. That would be anything similar to what like the Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids does in their tobacco free arena, where they bring in youth from around the world and use their stories to help people understand the issues of tobacco use. And then there's also influencers. We'll get into that a little bit later. There's a lot of factors to take into account, but we can talk on that. And then some potential communications products. You can see here short form videos. Uh, Many people will argue, but I guess minute and under would be considered short form. Uh, Illustrated content, that would be, comic strips, things that are more parody. People seem to react easier. It's easier on the eyes when they see illustrated content. Animated shorts, we have seen many examples of that around the globe in a lot of the work countries we work in. Anything that engages people, polls, questions. And then the last one that we've seen, which is kind of a new thing, are what they call carousel posts, which are a sequence of images that have text, infographics, along with other information that, people can just swipe to see in a very quick way. So that's some ideas for youth. For policymakers, you can use LinkedIn, you can create policy briefs, newspaper op-eds, TV interviews. I'll add a radio interviews are important in there. Facebook is also pretty big in other countries. So, looking at there and how you can maybe tag a policymaker if that's acceptable, or sometimes an engagement with the policymaker, a simple question, that's something you can use. And then there's social tagging. Now, that may not work in every context, but it's still a viable activity or uh, thing you can do to help move your policy along. Some potential products could be like one pagers, social media highlighting earned media opportunities. That would be like an article that you put out, and then you can try and boost it through social media. Social media engagement, Twitter chats, AMAs, which are Ask Me Anythings, anything to just garner public support and show the public what you're working on and how it affects them. And then lastly, we have motorcycle communities. Again, you can look at community radios, WhatsApp, TV associations, and then in-person activities. I know in Uganda, they've had a lot of success working with the motorcycle riders, or they call them boda bodas, and really trying to, find champions there. And that's the last one, road safety champions. These could be people who've been affected by road safety issues. These are people who are, prominent advocates who believe in it. One example that comes to mind is there is a celebrity actor in Bangladesh whose family was affected by a road crash, and he's very adamant about it and he does everything he can. And those are the type of people you want to look for. And then some other interesting products you can use: short form audio, messaging for WhatsApp, comms for subscription growth. Join our newsletter, maybe tease out articles on WhatsApp and provide a linked code to join. One pagers, takeaways, things, anything you can give someone that highlights the work you're doing and how you can best communicate what needs to be communicated. Here we have some tips on content creation. I know we live in a world where there is a incessant need for content, so creating content is always important. We have, gained insights, use surveys, focus groups, existing data where you can, what you can use to show and tell your audience, where the information is coming from and why it's important. Uh, I like this one a lot. I think it's think trust, not just reach. Look for channels where your audience trusts, right? Don't look for channels that are going to get the largest amount of views, but look for channels that are trustworthy, that people will, listen to and not just look at. Match your format to your habits, to other people's habits: short videos for youth, detailed briefs for policymakers, and storytelling on radio for communities. Consider multiple touch points. Combine your online and offline channels for reinforcement. One example I can give: in Uganda is they do a walk for World Day of Remembrance, and one of the things they're going to try and do this year, is identify key locations on that walk that while they're walking, they can put out some information like this intersection has this many traffic because of the lack of signage or traffic calming measures. So that's another way to leverage your touch points. Look for trusted messengers. Pair your channel with credible voices: youth leaders, on TikTok, doctors on TV, association leaders on WhatsApp. Test and adapt. Not everything works one place and another. A lot of it is trial and error. But once you figure out something that works, please, keep using it and, enhance it. Try and figure out how to make it work even more. And then lastly, balance the cost and the impact. Focus on channels that give you the most influence for the resources available. It's if you have a higher subscription count on LinkedIn, but you're not getting enough views, maybe it's best to go to the place where you're getting the most engagement and focus on that. So these are just some tips on content creation. I think the only thing I would add is the best way to really get this through is just to do. And that doing will inform you. It will give you the opportunity to make timelines, to act quickly. Maybe something came up and you weren't prepared, so the next time you have something ready, just in case. That's the way you have to do it, and that's the best practice for communications. Storytelling. So, one of the things we've been trying to roll out to our countries this past year and moving forward is this aspect of storytelling. Using everyday stories to make impact for road safety. So here are some key things to take into account. It makes the data human. Personal stories give life to statistics that make the issue feel real and urgent, and they give context. Like sometimes people don't understand, and if you give a context through the story, it makes them understand the situation, the issue better. I think this one's important too. It builds empathy to inspire action. Stories can connect with people emotionally. They can connect with families. They can connect with people where the messaging resonates with them. And, those are the people you want, because those are the ones who are going to talk to their policymakers and decision makers and show that, we need these things. Uh, it cuts through the noise. In crowded media spaces, personal stories can garner attention. We see the analytics videos always perform better than static posts. So using that storytelling, even if it's a sequence of pictures, really adds a little bit of flavor. And then I think it amplifies the voices. I think, you're looking at people who live with these situations day to day, and storytelling will help bring that everyday uh, aspect into your work. So here we have a list of storytelling motifs. These are story like frameworks of stories you can use within your advocacy campaigns. There are a lot. I'll highlight a few just for time, but we will be sending out this deck later so anyone can really take a look and see how these work and try and implement them. But the ones I wanted to highlight that we've seen across our program is we've seen the myth busting narrative where you take a you present a common misconception and then reveal the truth. Another here we have where is it, testimonial clusters, where you put a group of testimonials together about the same thing. And I'm a big fan of the day in the life stories. I think showing something as it happens is a really good way because it gives an inherent sense of beginning, middle, and end, which a story needs. So, as you do this, what you'll find is you could start mixing these storytelling motifs together. You can do a day in the life with a testimonial. You can do, data driven with a before and after. So there's a lot of things you can do with these motifs, but, first focus on one and understand how it works, and then you can expand that way. So there have been a lot of chatter, and we've heard feedback from a lot of our groups about survivor testimonials and how to ethically and respectfully use them. So we came up with this list here. I think, it's important to get informed consent, ensure that your survivors that you're talking to understand how their story will be used, and, get voluntary permission without pressure. If they don't want to do it, you don't want to pressure them. Treat their issue with dignity and agency. Center the survivor's voice. Let them choose what they want to share and how they are represented. One piece of advice on this is you can draft questions and send it to them beforehand, before you do anything, and maybe get feedback on this questions. Maybe they want to elaborate on something, and that's a really good way to give them a piece of ownership in what they're talking about. Safety and privacy, protect the survivors from potential harm by if you need to safeguard their identity or personal details. And then last, it's all about context, not exploitations. Present the stories in a way that highlights systemic issues and solutions, not just personal suffering. Don't try not to interview someone who's experiencing trauma or shock or is emotional. And I think we can all use these in a better way. And then lastly, we have identify effective partnerships and, oh no, we have an influence. So, influencers are a thing. They are important. People are starting to see their value as far as getting messaging out. But, there are some things to take into account as you approach, an influencer. Are they credible? And who are the target audience that they will hit? Are they key opinion leaders, doctors, congressmen, influencers, survivors, thinking of me that way? Like, do they have policy skills? Do they have firsthand knowledge of the problem, technical expertise? Do they have a celebrity status? Do they have a relationship with your target audience or seniority within an organization? Uh, will the audience value their opinion? I think that's really important. If you get a fashion blogger to talk about road safety, I don't know if an audience will really value their opinion, but if you get a teacher or someone who is, connected to the issue, I think people will, have a little bit more empathy towards them. Is there a clear link between the messenger and the groups affected by the issue? Make them relatable. Find an influencer that makes it relatable. Um, does the benefit of utilizing the messenger outweigh the political risk? Like, is there an issue? Will there be a blowback? Is this person not liked? Right? It's things to consider. And then finally, will the messenger refrain from political comments unrelated to the issue? I think this is important. I think sometimes people want their own stage, and we want to avoid those types of people. You want people who are going to do it for the betterment of your community. So just some effective, some tidbits here. Of course, myself, Cindy, Karina, our other communications partner here. If you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. if you need our opinion or need us to look into anything, that's, our role within this. So we're definitely here to help you as you navigate this issue. And with that, I'll give it back to Cindy for our next presenter.
Thank you, Awesome. Thanks for that. And so now we will get into the presentation or the case study in Uganda with Irene. So Irene, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone from Uganda, and good morning, everyone, and maybe hi, hello, for all the others that I don't know what the time is. Thank you so much. At Safeway Right Way, we are an NGO that focuses on road safety and improving road safety in different communities, and really in implementing quick solutions to bigger problems and assessing their effectiveness. One of those has been communication and trying to bring the motorcycle community much closer to the road safety sphere. How we did that is we identified the gap in effective communication. And why was this important? There were many messages that were going out to motorcycle riders, but they were not listening. So we're wondering, why are they not listening? So we engaged them, sat down with them on a roundtable and said, okay, what is the issue here? Do you not see, do you not know this is happening? And we were trying to assess why are they not picking up on the message as quickly as we wanted them to pick up on that. And with that, we were able to come up with different steps that I'm going to go through, like collaboration with key government agencies. They felt like they were a bit apart from the government, and no matter how much the government was trying to make that communication, it just wasn't reaching them because they're already blocked off. They had already seen that there was I should say, a gap in classification or categorization. So in collaborating with the key government agencies, we're able to have a linkage between the motorcycle riders and the government agencies. So that the government agencies are speaking more into the motorcycle language and speaking into their welfare and business and operation and understanding what is it that matters to the motorcycle riders, even just knowing that they live day by day and they are more into the wellness of today. So that makes all the difference in what our activities or initiatives are going to be with them. So we also looked at mobilization through one-on-one and calls, sitting down on a round table, calling them to understand what is the issue, can you support us, being able to bring them on board and bring their leadership especially on board, and being able to take them through what is the agenda, why is it important, and being able to reduce the message from complicated languages into into the local languages and into an understanding that's a bit more comprehensive for anybody who didn't have much or hadn't gone much into education levels. We were also able to mobilize influencers and training champions, and this involved going stage by stage, engaging the motorcyclists at their stages. We have what we call stages in Uganda, where motorcyclists wait for passengers. So we go into these stages and we are able to have conversations, not really speak down into them, but really have conversations on what our message is, so they're able to relate with the person who is having the message, but also for us to understand their workplace and be able to hear them in a less official language. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the one that was critical, and I think that has made all the difference, is the involvement of the riders in all the road safety activities to improve the buying. Whereas they would have been able to push back, because we involve their leadership, we involve the motorcyclists, we involve the different fractions into the planning, into the organizing, into the mobilization, into the implementation, into owning some of these strategies or some of these activities, also improved a lot of buy-in from them. We were able to see much changes when the motorcycle leaders or the motorcyclists themselves were leading some of these activities. Also, the use of local languages, I hinted a bit on it, and this helped us to simplify the messaging from what is normally would have been complicated into having a conversation with them in the different local languages. We do have about maybe 53, I would say 53 languages in our country. So depending on which region we go to, we have to find an interpreter, or we find somebody from that region who is able to speak into the language of the motorcyclists and translate the message, but also to create buy-in into those communities, because they're able to relate with the cultures, the norms, the understanding. They're able to even point out things that you think are simple, like point out maybe somebody who say, okay, last time it was so-and-so's child, this time it's so-and-so's child. Because they're in the communities, they're able to really bring it down to the community level. We also have looked at being participatory or participating in the activities that they organize on their own. So they'll call you and say, okay, we have a meeting about welfare, but could you help us speak into road safety in that meeting? And you're able to participate in that. That means that in turn, they will also reciprocate and give as much time and give you as much space in terms of if you wanted to have an activity that you thought that motorcyclists would be able to participate in and benefit from. We've also used social media a lot, like TikTok and WhatsApp groups. They have already their own groups, so we really just join these groups and be able to pass on the messages and be able to really mobilize them, to inform them of what is new, what is happening. And if we have any events that are there, we invite them for those events. We've also looked at videos. I think the previous presenters have spoken about this. We've got several videos that speak into helmet wearing, into speeding, and these are all going at a different risky behavior around the motorcyclists. In these videos, we use motorcyclists themselves who have maybe experienced a crash or have been victims of these crashes. I think Asim already spoke about storytelling, and they tell their story in a very short video and the effects of that story. And oftentimes they look at what is it that they lost, which goes from maybe family, losing their family, losing their providence actions, or anything else. So in speaking into those short videos, we're able to share these videos to repeatedly have them on social media, so that people are able to see what actually does happen out there. Next slide. Some of the benefits of some of the things I've mentioned up there, for example, of using champions. On my right, I think would be maybe your left, are the champions, and this is in the Albertine region. These champions are motorcyclists who we were able to reward with a training in first aid. Why was that necessary? Because these guys had taken on the message and were wearing their helmets, wearing their reflector jackets, and were always speaking to their friends and colleagues about wearing helmets and helmets. So we're able to ask them if they wanted to take part in a training for first aid. And these champions welcomed this and were able to participate in a training that was facilitated by one of the expertise groups. What happened is that they took on the training and they were in different communities. And in those communities, they have taken on the mantle of continuously speaking into road safety and encouraging people at the different stages in their meetings. And now they can also give first aid because they're the ones who respond fast at the crash scenes. So in doing that, we saw other motorcyclists also wanting to take part and to be able to welcome road safety like something that would improve their lives. I think the final one that we did was also to reward them with new helmets. They did have helmets that were old and were not up to standard, so we rewarded them with standard helmets at a certain gathering in front of many other motorcyclists. And this actually has improved the helmet wearing in some of the areas of these champions. We trained about 189 champions, and we call them trainers of trainers. Why? Because they actually now are representing road safety in those areas, in those communities. We were able to conduct this session through this with the champions, 2,085 sessions. And with those sessions, we didn't go on our own. We do have community liaison officers and sociologists, but we get these champions and they lead. We just really follow and just speak after or speak a bit into maybe what they might have left out, but we actually train them and have them lead some of these sessions and all the time. We've also looked at using the local languages. No, you can go to the next slide. We've looked at translation into local languages. I already mentioned that. One of the things that we did was when we were having the helmet helmet awareness sessions, it was brought to our attention that whereas we think that helmet is such an easy word, somebody would not be able to understand it as much as they'd understand it in the local languages. So in the follow-up sessions, we actually translated and had the local name, which is element, on the different reflector jackets. That's on my right. And that is how we had a lot of embracing of motorcyclists. I cannot say typically that we we have 100% compliance, but I would say that the message reached home in translations, and also in the different communities that we work with. Following that engagement, we've not used English to really engage these motorcyclists. We just go into the local language and interpretation. Next slide. The other thing that I would say that has really worked is the engagement of the border leadership. The different motorcyclists fractions have leadership. So we engage their leadership to be able to mobilize these road safety awareness campaigns. I think in this picture, I wanted to show that the people at the front were leaders and the people at the back were happily following into the awareness campaign. And on that particular day, I think we had about 500 motorcyclists who came through to be a part of that awareness campaign, and that's in the Albertine region. They came from the different districts around, and they're able to take part in this when we're showcasing the different helmet standards. We're also showcasing first aid. For the different champions were showcasing the first aid training they had benefited from. But what was critical is that it was the leadership that organized these motorcyclists to come through. These leaders actually are influential in these communities or in the motorcycle communities. And whereas they may not appear to hold as much power, they actually are holding so much power, and these people respect them because they've chosen these leaders themselves. So we work with the border leadership. We train the border leadership. We engage them in planning. We engage them in everything so that they're able to take part and to take ownership of these activities, and their understanding of the benefit for their different communities and their people. Next slide, please. I mentioned a bit of this where we go to the different stages and we are taking part in the stage activities. We have our community liaison officers who go down into these stages and speak into the different road safety initiatives that we would want to bring on board into safety for motorcyclists, into speeding, risky behaviors, drink driving, name it, and they would be able to speak, but they speak in their local languages, as I already mentioned. What is different here is it's collaborative, it's discussion, it's not like a classroom setting. It's everybody on their motorcycle and really just having a conversation about what it is that we may have brought on board on that day. So we don't do this once, we do this over and over again. We do this over and over again about the different risk behaviors that motorcyclists might encounter in the different communities. So depending on what the statistics tell us on the crash or the crashes, we try to create awareness, but stage to stage. And we do that sometimes with our champions, sometimes with our community liaison officers. Also, sometimes we go into we use the different maybe we give them IEC materials, and I just really talking about using the IEC material to make the communication. Next slide, please. I think this has been one of the most recent activities that we've done, and that's been working on the helmet user guide, and we're trying to get in those pictures, we're trying to get validation from the motorcycle industry. But typically we worked with the motorcyclists on this one. We had about 5 motorcyclists, different leaders from different fractions, who worked with a team of technocrats to come up with what they thought the education material should look like for their motorcyclists or for their riders. And with this, we had the leaders take charge of giving us insights and how should we design it, what should it look like, where should we change, what information is critical, what would change the thinking of the person, are statistics important? So they were able to speak into all those activities. We came from focus group discussions into dialogues where they were really taking lead and taking charge of these conversations. We looked at presentations of what do we expect from them, what do we want the user guide to look like, and then we use these different meetings to also have the video messages that are telling a story about the lack of helmets or the use of helmets and how it saved somebody, whereas they may have had a bit of body damage. They also still are alive and are able to maybe reinvent their work or reinvent their lives. So we had a lot of deliberations using the different tools that are employed there or that I've mentioned there. And in doing that, we introduce the motorcycle leadership into what the possibilities are of teaching or creating awareness amongst their own fractions. Next slide, please. This is one of the border champions that we used on some of the awareness sessions. And in having him up there, he was being rewarded for being the best champion because of the passion that he exhibited in training and sensitizing others. I think this was our champion of that day, and we've used the rewarding system of rewarding them with helmets. We want to go into other rewards, for example, like the shin guards and the knee guards, so that these motorcyclists are able to feel like safety is a part of them and they do it with a passion and not necessarily because they're earning from it, but also because they typically believe in the message that they're giving out there. So we are using this gentleman as our, if I should say, uh, champion lead because of the passion that he exhibits in promoting road safety amongst others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Irene, for giving us that really great overview. So we can open it up for a question now. If there's anybody, any participants online that have a question, please go ahead and enter it in the chat. And we'll give a minute or two to see if there are any questions we have in the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you for arranging this session. I am Mohammad Islam Moniz. I am from Bangladesh. I am working currently at the Australian Mission Road Safety Project as an advocacy officer policy. So first of all, I want to thank for all of you or the host to arrange this webinar. I think worldwide for the global road safety initiative is very important. It is a global issue to reduce the road crash and how we are working and what instructions should be followed uh, to create a strong network on road safety. This today's session is helpful for us. I also request you the recording, the final recording also be, if the final recording will be shared with us, it will also be helpful for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard all of the question. Would you like to type it in the chat box? I had some problems hearing. I don't know if everybody else did. Irene.
Yeah, it was a
No,
little muffled. I'm sorry. I could not understand either.
same here.
There also, like, can you say again? Do you understand me? What I am saying already?
It's not that we can't understand you, but while you're speaking, the audio goes in and out. So it's not that issue. I think it's a connectivity issue. Maybe it'd be better if you just type it in the chat and that way we can make sure we fully understand what's being asked.
Can I share my speech again?
Okay, well, we are going to move along now just because we've got two more presentations and we want to make sure that you hear from everybody. But thank you for your comment. And as always, if you have a question, you can send it to myself or Awesome, and we're more than happy to forward it to Irene or any one of the participants for today. All right, so with that, Awesome, can we move to the next slide? Thank you. And so now we will hear from Movidana in Ecuador. So Paola, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Paola, and I'm truly happy to be here today and to introduce our organization, Movidana. We are an NGO founded 5 years ago in Ecuador, and our mission is simple but powerful. We really work to defend the right to enjoy the city. We work to make our city safer, more inclusive, more people-centered through public policy, urban space interventions, technical studies, and of course, road safety education. I think that what really makes us unique is our energy. More than 65% of our team are young people. And that keeps us constantly searching for ways to involve them as active citizens and change makers in our country. The program we want to share with you today is called Young Champions for Road Safety, and we're about to launch its second call for applications in the coming weeks. Next slide, please. This program is a 6-month hybrid training process, part in person, part in virtual, designed to help young Ecuadorians build leadership and communication skills while learning deeply about road safety issues. Our goal is to empower them to become true champions, young voices who can raise awareness and inspire action in a country where road crashes are the second leading cause of death for people aged 5 to 29. This program started with seed funding from yours as one of the winners of the 2024 Local Actions Call, and later expanded with support from GUI, which allowed us to double participation from 10 to 20 young leaders nationwide. At first, we weren't sure if there would be much interest, but we received over 100 applications from across the entire country. And that moment really showed us something important. Young people really want to be part of the solution. At Movidana, we believe that youth must not only be heard, but they must be prioritized. And with that, I'm honored to pass the floor to Michelle and Pamela, two of our young champions, who will tell you more about this inspiring program. Michelle.
Thank you, Paola. Thank you, Cindy, to invite us to be here. Actually, Paola invited us too because we're talking about youth. As you can see, we are young people. And next slide, please. And I would like to tell you how to engage youth, because we are youth. What do we want? And if we're thinking about what youth want, we will have to go to 4 keywords. The first one, opportunities. We youth, we're all about opportunities. We are about opportunities of scholarship. We're about opportunities to learn, to connect, and that's all we want. If you give us an opportunity, we will apply to it. So that's a keyword if you want to engage youth. Second one, we would like to be someone. When you're young, you're wondering, okay, this is what I want to achieve in my life, or maybe this is another thing I want to achieve. I don't know what exactly I want to be, but I want to have an identity. And this is important about engaging youth, to give them an opportunity to be someone or to discover who to be. Of course, the third one have to be make change. There all this says that youth wants to do something, wants to get to work, make some change. If you give us an opportunity to be someone and make some change, that don't have us to wait for, to be a mayor or to be a politician to make change. To show us there's an opportunity if I can change someone's behavior. I love the examples they made on motorcycle in Uganda. I mean, they're just riders. But if you give them the opportunity to make some change in their behavior, in their community, this is powerful and we want to be on it. And the fourth thing that is really, really important is we want community. Community is important to have people that share your same thoughts, that you can share opportunities, that you can afford to have some bonding that can lead you to a same goal. Here you can see the picture of a young man. His name is Richard. Richard is part of our first cohort champion for road safety, and he became from Richard to a young champion for road safety, and then a representative of the coalition member. Where he's standing in the picture is in the National Assembly. You know, I haven't been in National Assembly, but he had. So he had the opportunity to speak up for young people and be in the media and be in television, and that's what we want. I'll give you some examples in the next slide, please. Someone said they cannot see the PPT, but I see it. I don't know if everyone is seeing it.
I can see it.
see it. I can see it.
Yes, we can
Okay,
see it, Michelle.
Okay, perfect. So as we told you, we have to create community, and that's what we did with the Young Champions for Road Safety. We made some on-site meetings in Guayaquil, Ecuador, where we are from. I don't know if you mentioned it. We're not from the capital. We're from the largest city in our country. And you can see in the first picture, this is all the people with the jackets of road safety and stuff, being really happy, and that's what they were looking into. I mean, to have people, young people, that can be their colleagues for different parts of our country, they're friends already, and this was really helpful because we did this in the first meeting to have everyone on site, so we can follow up then in Zoom meetings after that, after they create a bonding. Second thing that is important is to give us a specific task and spaces. We're all about doing something, but we need guidance, you know. We may not be that proactive at first, but if you give them a little guide, a space to be, they will have all their potential on there. There you can see some champions being in interviews, in television, making some campaigns on the street. And as we told you, to give us a role or a name. For instance, I'm Michelle, but I'm also a member of the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety. I'm also a regional leader of the Global Youth Coalition. You know, it changed and it makes me feel more powerful, for instance, to be here to speak up with you. So give them a role of ambassador of as the motorcycle initiative in Uganda being champions. It makes the whole difference just to add a different word to a young people. And of course, involve social media. I heard Azim give us a lot of tips of being social media, and this is important. We love social media. We want to be seen. So if you have these tools like TikTok, Instagram, Reels, it will be really fun. You will have your youth engaged. So I'm going over to Pamela so she can tell us more about tools, initiative, and our success stories.
Thank you,
Next
Michelle.
slide.
So another way to engage youth is by introducing them to online tools and initiatives that make participation easier and more meaningful. At Movidana, we have seen how digital tools can connect young people, build skills, and help them take part of real projects. For example, we have used Mobility Snapshots, a tool that allows you to evaluate your street in your city, collect evidence, and visualize how safer designs could look like. This helps us understand that road safety is not abstract, it's something you can measure, analyze, and improve with data. We have also worked with a star rating for schools from IRAP, a methodology that allows you to assess safety around schools. And the Youth Engagement app, or also from IRAP, that gives young people an interactive way to document road safety issues, share ideas, and connect with others around the world. For many, it's their first experience being part of a global movement, such as road safety, and it shows that their voices matter. By introducing these kinds of tools, we're not only giving youth access to technology, but also helping them build confidence, technical skills, and a sense of belonging in the global road safety community. Next slide, please. And now our success stories. Through our work with young people, we have seen how participation can truly evolve into leadership. Many of our champions for road safety started as volunteers that were curious about the topic, but after being part of the program, they became strong local advocates. Several new youth movements have been created by the champions themselves, like the ones shown in the picture, like Red Azul from the city of Cuenca and Movimiento Vial Machala from the city of Machala. They're now leading these independent initiatives in different cities, raising awareness, organizing community actions, and inspiring even more young people to get involved. This ripple effect is what makes us the proudest and is the most exciting outcomes of our work. It shows that when young people are given trust, guidance, and tools, they don't just support a project, they start one of their own. For us, that's the real success of youth engagement, when young people are meaningfully integrated into road safety efforts and become true partners in creating lasting change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pamela, Michelle, and Paola. Do we have any questions for the team from Ecuador or Movidana this morning?
If I can add something, is that there's a lot of funding for youth, for young people. So you must add young people to your initiative, because now we've applied to, for 3 funding that involve young people, and that's great for organizations. So you have more resources to execute projects and also to give youth opportunities to make some change. Yeah, that's what I will add.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. So I guess a question from GHAI would be, it sounds like you've done such a great job engaging youth. You had more than 100 applications. There's already a lot of engagement. So what's next in terms of what you want to accomplish, say, within the next year? What are you keeping your eye on next in terms of engaging youth?
Well, Cindy, we're going to have a second edition of this program. We're starting that in a few weeks. We were hoping to have 25 more young leaders. And also, like Pamela said, I think she explained that we have this second part of the program called Zonas J, like J zones. J is from young people in Spanish, jóvenes. So the first champions from the Young Champions for Road Safety, they are going to work with us with this second program, also seed funded from yours. And we are going to intervene some school zones in 6 different cities with young people leading these interventions.
Okay, thank you, Paola. And we do have a question here. How would we measure the effectiveness of road safety communications campaigns or efforts? Is there a specific way that the Movidana team is starting to do that?
Well, more than the road safety campaigns like that, what we are measuring is the amount of young people getting involved in road safety. And that's really important for us because, like Pamela also said, we have 2 new movements from young leaders in 2 different cities, and we are expecting a third one in Riobamba, another city. So that's what we are seeing, like young people doing their own movements, their own NGOs to work for road safety across the country.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paola, Michelle, and Pamela. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation from Petra Corral, who's going to tell us about a successful influencer campaign that was launched earlier in the year. So take it away, Petra. Oh, awesome. Can you share?
Yeah, I cannot see the presentation. Thank you, Cindy.
There we go.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm in Kiev, Ukraine, and my name is Petro Korol. I'm in country coordinator for road safety program in Ukraine. And today I'm going to tell you about our social media campaign aiming establishing a social media presence of the speeding issue. The campaign was conducted at the beginning of this year and by one of our grantees, Center for Democracy and Rule of Law. Next slide, please. Before starting the presentation, I will say a few words about the problem that we have in Ukraine. So speeding is the deadliest threats for Ukrainians now. Can you imagine? Only the second one to Russian missiles attack, and more than half of the road crashes caused by speeding in Ukraine. And I think for the last 3 years, 8 8,500 people died on Ukrainian roads, and almost 6% of these tragedies were caused by speeding. And unfortunately, and this is funny story, only 2 countries in the world have this 20 kilometers non-penalized threshold, which is Ukraine and Russia. Social media campaign, speed up in life, but don't rush on the road. Before beginning the campaign, we established 2 main goals of the campaign. First one is to inform Ukrainians that following speeding limits save lives on the roads. And the second goal was to urge policymakers to take actions and to finally develop, to register and support draft law that reduces this non-penalized threshold and introduces new fines for speeding violations. Next slide, please. The main idea of the campaign was to involve bloggers and opinion leaders who support the information campaign, calling for reducing this non-penalized threshold. And bloggers and opinion leaders were involved in developing different creative solutions for integration. And the integration are based on the usually short video formats for distribution in TikTok, Reels, Facebook, or maybe YouTube short formats. And the campaign lasts for about 1.5 months. And during every week, different opinion leaders were involved with different integrations on different social media platforms. So the campaign was supported by different opinion leaders. There were famous journalists, activists, sports persons, or influencers. And we, together with grantees, it was developed 6 different messages and visuals in the format of posts, stories, other different video formats. For example, one of the campaign message was, again, speed up in life, but don't rush on the road. And opinion leaders usually in their video formats, they talked about the problem, about the speeding, about the road safety, and of course they asked people, their audience, to share their message. And of course they called to politicians to develop and to adopt draft law, speeding draft law, to reduce non-penalized threshold and to introduce fines for speeding violation. Finally, there were many different formats, and we tried to encourage as much as possible the audience, and we tried to use the audience of these opinion leaders. Usually, opinion leaders created their own videos, stories on social media. Again, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, TikTok, and they, of course, there were reposts from our grantees social media pages, where bloggers and our NGOs and grantees, they are encouraged people to spread the information about the campaign and to spread the messages of the campaign. Next slide, please. Here you can see there are just pictures of 3 different influencers. There is famous journalist, famous blogger, and famous politicians. So basically, we involved 10 different opinion leaders, and we actually before we began the campaign, we planned only 5. But then when we again talked to the opinion leaders, talked to the influencers, they all show interest in the campaign and they would like to participate. So basically, we managed to twice to exceed our campaign goals in twice, since firstly was 5 leaders, and then we managed to have 10 collaborations. And the important part here, of course, were to choose opinion leaders. And actually, this is important thing in the if you are building such campaign with the bloggers. Firstly, we identify our goal, then we identify different key characteristics of the bloggers. We research potential candidates. We conducted interview with them, and finally we identify their credentials, their values, and of course we analyze their audio engagement. And since our goal was also to urge politicians, we tried to collaborate with the leaders who have audience in the politicians area, who can at least politicians or decision makers listen or communicate with such opinion leaders. So there were lots of, in social media, there were lots of views, likes, comments, saves, and shares by the opinion leaders and by their audience. Next slide, please. Well, as you can see, we around 20 mentions in the national regional level we received. There were around 6 million views on different Ukrainian channels, and again, there were many views and publications on the website and social network. At the same time, the important part of the campaign was that we actually we reached one of the goal. We actually involved 3 members of the parliament, and after the campaign they contacted us and showed interest that they are ready to collaborate with us. They are ready to work on the draft law, and they are even informed us that they are ready to register the draft law that we were advocating. Next slide, please. Finally, the key results, and I would say, and the lessons learned so far, and what was the priority after the campaign was ended. We tried to at least continue raising awareness about the issues through different channels. We tried to continue working with other influencers to reach a larger audience, and we actually develop a clear mechanism for engaging the public, and the opinion leaders showed a lot of formats. They even taught us how to deal with their audience, and of course this is for Ukrainian perspective. We try to use message as EU integration. Since Ukraine is going to EU, we used one of the message to that we need European standards. And again, we involve partners in the information campaign, such as driving school and or public organizations that work in the road safety, or the journalists who would like to who would like to write more about the road safety. And finally, we reached our important milestone this summer, and we found around 16 members of the parliament, and we registered the draft law that we this was our actual goal, the draft law registration and adoption. Of course, registration is only the first milestone, but anyway, for us, this is like what we see and what we can feel, that after the end of the campaign, we finally got the draft law registered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Petro, and so great to hear that this campaign was so influential, right, via your influencers. So with that, I know we are at time, but do we have any questions for Petro for today's presentation? Okay, I think one piece, I'm not sure if you mentioned that, Petro, was that the team actually in Ukraine had the members of parliament calling CSOs, right? Because they had heard about the interest from the public.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. We have MPs who actually, well, when they saw the campaign, when they saw that opinion leaders were working on the campaign, and when they hear the messages, they contacted us and showed interest in collaboration.
That's fantastic, fantastic to hear. So thank you, Petro. And Awesome, can you share your screen again? I think we just have 2 more things I wanted to share with everybody for today. But that does wrap up our presentations for today. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to include a survey in the chat. It's a 1-minute survey, so please, if you can just take some time to take it. We always want to know what your thoughts are about the webinar. So I included that in the chat. This next slide that you'll see here tells you a little bit more about GHAI's HATCH, or it's a Health Advocacy Training and Collaboration Hub. You can become a member and you will get all kinds of training for advocacy, for road safety advocacy, and for health advocacy. It's free to sign up. You just have to enter or register, but you will see anything from training on communications and media advocacy to political mapping to research for your advocacy. So a very helpful tool. There's a QR code there. Next slide, please. And then this slide is just a screenshot of our webinar survey. Like I said earlier today, we always want to hear about what topics are important to you in your different countries so that we bring to you relevant topics of interest in communications or in road safety advocacy. So we encourage you to take a minute and take this survey. You can also scan the QR code there to let us know how we did today. And then finally, I just want to thank all of our participants today for joining us on this early morning. For some, I know it's later in the afternoon, but this was all wonderful insight. Our next step will be to share this presentation in the next few days. So look out for that. And to the team in Ecuador, to Petro, to Irene, thank you so much for your presentations.
You're welcome, and thank you too for organizing and mobilizing.
Thank you, Irene. All right, everyone. So have a great rest of your day or the rest of the afternoon, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you all. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Asim. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.